Hello, this is about digital transformation and business continuity planning, or BCP, so business continuity planning, basically ensuring that businesses can continue operating even if there were to be some kind of a disruption or a catastrophe or a disaster. You don't want businesses to stop continuing. But this is all about the case where we learn some lessons from the COVID-19 era. This is from the textbook Teaching Cases in Information Systems by Data and Acton. So let's start. So, business and operational continuity are the backbones for any kind of industrialized setup, any kind of productive setup. It's oftentimes driven by worries about something called a black swan event. And a black swan event is something that has very much like a black swan. You don't get to see them often, but when you do see them, they can provide mesmerization, or sometimes, in this case, it's called a black swan event because it has low probability but a devastating impact, right? It's a global disruption that happens. COVID-19 was something very, very similar. So when it came, it was unexpected and everything went to a lockdown, and that required operational continuity, which is a part of business continuity planning, which is the ability of organizations to continue their essential functions during and after a disaster has occurred. According to a 2020 Fortune article, more than 73% of CEOs felt that COVID-19 was the digital transformation linchpin. Now, it's called a linchpin because that's what we call as a pivot. What is that trigger that will oftentimes require organizations to change tactics? And of course, when COVID-19 happened, things went into lockdowns, people couldn't come to work. So whether you're talking about simply Zoom calls as a mechanism to leapfrog the very fact that you couldn't actually come to work. And that became so popular, including things, if you remember things like Zoom bombing and so forth, it became very popular, which was people entering Zoom calls unidentified, and they could just post whatever pictures they wanted to, sometimes raunchy pictures or so forth, but anyway, could have became a bit of a threat. So this allowed linchpins are events that oftentimes black swan events that force companies to rethink, right? Whether you're introducing robotics because you can't find people, or using AI because you realize that there might be issues with interpretation and syntactics and semantics. Every organization needs a reason to change tactics, and COVID-19 was a reason for maintaining business and operational continuity using digital transformation. So even companies that had planned on a gradual digital transformation over 2 or 3 years were forced to accelerate their efforts at breakneck speed. Facing high uncertainty, individuals and companies, especially small businesses, grasped at whatever technology appeared available. The common thought was, especially among small business owners, was to implement any technology that seemed to work and get something running quickly. If you can't continue your operations, you can't continue to survive. That's the eternal existential problem that every organization faces. This needed strategic agility, which is the ability of an organization to quickly and effectively adapt to changes in the external environment. When the external environment changes, you have to adapt, or you're going to get swallowed by it. So digital transformation and business continuity planning become central pieces, central cogs in shaping today and tomorrow. So once again, what is strategic agility? It's the digital transformation that can help organizations become more agile, right? That's the agility part, and be able to adapt to changing circumstances quickly and effectively. This is critical during a crisis, when the ability to respond quickly and effectively can be the difference between success and failure. Streamlined operations, another one. Digital transformation helps organizations streamline their operations, right? So you're trying to remove all the unneeded nuts and bolts and to reduce not only the risk of disruption but also to simplify and make it leaner, right? So we are making it leaner. By automating tasks and processes, organizations can reduce the number of potential points of failure and make it easier to recover from a disruption. Improved communication and collaboration. Digital transformation can improve communication and collaboration among employees, customers, partners. This is essential during a crisis when it's critical to keep everyone informed of the situation, right? Because you have to figure out, how do we let everybody know? The only way to let everybody know, keep everybody updated on the fly, is to use a combination of good strategy, good processes, and good digitally transformed technologies, right? Or digitally transformed processes via technology, and to be able to work together effectively. Then, of course, digital transformation offers enhanced data protection, can help organizations protect their data from loss or theft by, of course, creating better digital perimeters. Fewer human beings in the loop oftentimes might signal that fewer points of failure, right? So this is critical during a crisis when data can be at risk from a variety of different threats. Of course, cybersecurity can change this entire dynamics, right? Or cyber threats can change these entire dynamics. But human beings moving around with pieces of paper, storing things in certain places can oftentimes introduce vulnerabilities that are unknown. And interestingly, if a digital asset is stolen, sometimes there is a traceback mechanism. But if somebody actually were to remove a single page and copy it on a photocopier, it's much more difficult to ever figure out if that was tampered with. So keep that in mind. Increased resilience. Digital transformation can help organizations become more resilient and better. And so resilience is the ability to spring back from problem, right, after a disruption, very much like continuity, and be better able to withstand the impact of a crisis. But investing in digital technologies and processes, organizations can reduce the risk of disruption and ensure that they can continue to function effectively in the face of adversity. So let's go back to the start, right? So once upon a time, in a Wuhan wet market in China, there was a zoonotic transfer. Zoonotic is when some kind of a virus moves from one type of species to another, and oftentimes that happens. And a wet market is where you are selling animals that are oftentimes wild animals, right? And whether you're talking about pangolins or bats or monkeys. And this is very, very common. The world is a strange place, and this happens all the time. So the severe acute respiratory syndrome, which is SARS, coronavirus is a version of SARS, technically called SARS-CoV-2, and the infection is we call it COVID-19. It was a mutant variety when the 2003 SARS-CoV, the CoV, severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus, and the 2020 Middle East respiratory syndrome sort of came as an amalgam of both. By May 7, 2020, COVID-19 had infected more than 3.78 million people worldwide and killed nearly 265,000 people across 218 countries. The COVID-19 pandemic significantly disrupted and transformed global societal and economic norms. In the UK, the number of in-person healthcare consultations decreased dramatically from over 1 million daily visits to approximately 7 out of every 100 people. Similarly, the US government implemented measures to facilitate virtual consultations between doctors and patients, representing a significant shift in healthcare delivery. And now I do understand, talking about this pivot, the linchpin. Nowadays, even if you were to talk to Cleveland Clinic, they will always ask you, would you like a virtual consultation? So when digital transformation happened, it became baked into the system for continuity, right? Can we also save money while offering continuity? And this is how it oftentimes starts. So there, of course, was the need for digital collaboration. So digital collaboration is the use of digital tools and platforms to enable multiple individuals to work together on joint projects, often remotely. So during a crisis, of course, multiple actors and stakeholders, from technology firms and government agencies to general businesses, individual entrepreneurs, they embark on operations aimed at providing public health technology solutions for BCP. In this case, these were public health technology solutions. Scientists got together, technologists got together. They started saying, how do we store the data? How do we share the data? How do we run incredibly complex biological and biomathematical models to see how the impact of mRNA and RNA types and different ways of creating vaccines would work, to look at the morphology of the virus and so forth. How do we do that between somebody who might be researching in Japan, somebody in possibly Sweden, somebody in India, somebody in China, somebody in Australia, somebody in Lithuania, somebody in Argentina, somebody in Brazil, and somebody in the US? How do you get them together? And that was the need for digital collaboration, for using digital platforms. So for instance, during the 2003, so let's take it back quite a few years, 1.5 decades ago, the 2003 the SARS epidemic in China, Sunday Communications, which was a Hong Kong-based mobile phone operator, used cellular tower location information in SMS, which is basically messaging, to alert subscribers if they were near areas with prevalent infections. They started reusing these technologies for COVID-19. Similarly, the World Health Organization, which is also called WHO, created a collaborative global public health intelligence network, or GOFIN, for research collaboration across 11 laboratories in 9 different countries. Singapore public hospitals used radio frequency identification, RFID. So RFID, oftentimes you'll see with cards that open doors and so forth, they use RFID chips, right? And hidden sensors to electronically monitor the movements and interactions of every person in the building. All interaction data were stored in a database for 20 days for any contact tracing, because that was oftentimes known as the time that the virus would if you're not infected by then or affected by the virus by then, most probably you're going to be in the clear. For all individual encounters and infected patients and personnel for rapid quarantine. But if they figured out, well, you were in contact, you were there, you could quarantine the person and let others know that quarantine yourselves because you were in contact with somebody who might have carried the virus. Singapore government's Blue Trace contact tracing app protocol was implemented using something called OpenTrace, made available via an open source code. So which means open source is when you have the program and the software code available for anybody that anybody can customize, right? So you can make it your own. It's not controlled by the company, but you keep it open. So customized by countries in line with each country's law, culture, and capabilities. During the same period, Alibaba, which is a very, very large e-commerce and fintech company in China, Hong Kong, launched a B2C, which is a business-to-consumer marketplace for online shopping of much-needed items for the millions who were under self-quarantine. And in China, the idea was they wanted a zero COVID policy, which meant that there were severe lockdowns where people even had to, oftentimes used to use ropes to drop, to slowly lower their pets onto the street for them to even go relieve themselves, right? So the need for digital collaboration became huge. Then, of course, was the need for transparency in processes and communications. That brings into this whole domain of security versus privacy dilemmas. Should you be tracked to keep others safe? How important is your privacy at when you're talking about the security of the collective? And that is a very difficult and a philosophical argument to be had. In South Korea, they used a lot of mobile technologies. People who tested positive were asked to describe their recent movements, aided by GPS phone tracking, surveillance camera records, and credit card transactions. The government created 2 mobile phone applications to follow and monitor potential patients. Those details enabled the Korea research centers and prevention to issue alerts based on gender, age category of every infected person and names and addresses, the places they'd visited, and of course also started real-time collaboration between regions and city governments, ensuring that when one region ran out of resources, they could be easily transferred, right? Partisanship and conspiracy theories, on the other hand, can seriously erode transparency. In the US, not only in the US, many parts of the world, fake news became very, very prevalent, especially coming in from Russia, trying to say that, well, the vaccines are for example, the AstraZeneca vaccine from Oxford, where basically you turn you into monkeys. Don't take vaccines, create tremendous partisanship, huge divides, create conspiracy theories, and so forth. And of course, this is where process transparency helps, but it's difficult to implement, because if you keep the process transparent, so the government started telling people, this is what we're doing. Companies started telling people, this is exactly what it is. In order to build better governance, which is a way of ensuring that everything is managed well, and also build trust, to reduce corruption so that people didn't hoard things, sell things at exorbitant prices, start scalping. Plus, of course, the people in the government didn't start taking bribes to give people passes, things like that. And of course, enhance decision making. So here's an example. So right during COVID-19, South Korea nonetheless had elections coming. And how would they couldn't just pause their elections because of COVID-19, so they had to rely on digital transformation for business continuity planning. So it started asking it, okay, you text all the testing centers, and then download the contact tracing, people download the contact tracing app. If you are positive, are you quarantined in a hospital or treatment center? Are you quarantined at home? Have you been tested for COVID-19? If you quarantined somewhere, you test the closest quarantined polling station. There was dedicated quarantined polling stations so that even people who were quarantined could access a polling station, but these were just for infected people. If you tested for COVID-19 and you are found to not have, you're not infected, then you text the closest walkable polling station. You ensure that you've got all the right equipment, sanitizers, gloves, masks, and so forth. Vote. And people who were in the polling station, they also could vote. And then, of course, you confirm that people from the quarantine centers were not meeting people from the unquarantined or people who were not infected, right, through contact tracing. So still kept democracy operating even under crisis, talking about continuity planning. So modularity becomes the key in this case. Keep things. So modularity is an approach to system building that divides the system into smaller parts, right? Small modules, or break down what we do into small chunks so that if we need to fix something, we can only fix that small chunk rather than trying to fix everything. That can be independently created, maintained, fixed, and then used in different systems to drive multiple functionalities. So the COVID-19 pandemic showed us the importance of modularity. Designing systems that are modular, you can be better prepared for future crises. because modularity gives you flexibility. If you have multiple separate components that work independently, if something breaks down, you can fix that rather than trying to fix the whole system, right? So they can be easily adapted and reconfigured to meet changing needs and requirements. Scalability is the other one. Scalability is huge because the whole thing is if you can make something work in a small bit, perfect example is scalability of vaccine production. You might be able to generate the vaccine in a lab. Can you convert that into hundreds of millions of vaccines? That's scalability. Can you scale it? So, can you create economies of scale, right? Can you make it build it quickly? So modularity allows you to scale because you can fit pieces like Lego puzzles, right, to create different things based on the demands. Innovation, modularity encourages innovation by allowing different teams of individuals to work on independent components of a larger system. And then, of course, maintenance and upgradability. Modular solutions are easier to maintain and upgrade as individual components can be replaced or updated without affecting the entire system. So you can, again, very much like Lego pieces, if one Lego piece breaks, you can fix that Lego piece rather than trying to fix the entire structure. So, business continuity planning digital transformation requires digital infrastructures. So the availability of reliable and high-speed internet connectivity as well as the development of digital platforms and service is essential for high DBI. DBI stands for digital business intensity. So you could ask yourself, can cell phones and next-gen infrastructure, for example, if you're talking about what do you call it, SpaceX's Starlink satellites that don't require cellular towers but give you satellite internet and satellite connections. Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin's Kuiper project, can they leapfrog a lack of landlines? Tomorrow, will we even care about coverage because the coverage is going to come from satellites, very much like our GPS? Digital literacy and skills, huge issue. A digitally literate and skilled population is crucial for the effective use of digital technologies and crisis management. Then, of course, data governance. How do you, in a world where we are transforming into some kind of a digitally rapidly progressing society, data becomes the heart, the blood of the system. And can you therefore practice good data governance and privacy? Can you use good governance and privacy frameworks, which is data management? How do you manage it? How do you govern the data, right? How do you make sure who reads it? Who can write to it? Who can change it? How do you ensure it's accurate, right? To ensure the responsible and ethical use of digital data in crisis management. And that's, the case of Italy. That was the case of Italy when Italy created this fantastic platform called EO, which stands for I, right? And they introduced these things like you could, on a single app, you could pay all your government bills, all your local taxes, everything. One single app, your school fees, anything you want to. It also had to ensure that people knew how to use it, going back to literacy and skills, plus, of course, ensuring privacy. Is this information going to the right person? Which meant that Italy needed to assign every single individual a dedicated secure email that was a unique identifier that was verified. So you couldn't just assume a name and create a Gmail account. This was a verified email. Then, of course, the regulatory environment. Supportive regulatory frameworks that encourage the adoption and use of digital technologies in crisis management are important. So the big question remains that should the government regulate digital transformation for BCP, or should public and private companies? Who should be the ones that should create the regulations? Now, some good examples of digital transformation and continuity planning during COVID-19 happened in several countries, but here are some basic but decent examples. In South Korea, we talked about it. They leveraged the existing robust digital infrastructure to implement extensive testing and contact tracing programs using mobile phone data and location tracking to monitor and control the spread of the virus. Singapore developed a contact tracing app called Trace Together, which used Bluetooth technology to identify and notify individuals who had been in close proximity to infected persons. Taiwan used big data analytics and AI to predict potential outbreaks. And so you're basically predicting, right? Where would the next big outbreak happen, and allocate resources effectively, very much like knowing where there's going to be a lot of snow or a lot of rain and having snow shovels and umbrellas ready before it happens is important, as well as implementing strict border controls and quarantine measures enforced through digital monitoring. Estonia, which is one of the most digitized countries in Europe right now, which is in Northern Europe, was able to quickly transition to remote work and online education, utilizing e-governance services and digital identity systems to maintain essential operations. Israel developed a green pass system that allowed vaccinated individuals to access public spaces and events, encouraging vaccination uptake and facilitating a gradual return to normalcy. So, what are the key takeaways? Maintain strategic agility. Be agile. Agility allows you to change when things change around you. Enhance and make sure you have enhanced communication. Digital tools can improve collaboration across teams, maintaining operations during disruptions. Highlight the importance of securing the data and therefore cybersecurity. With increased digital reliance, protecting data becomes paramount to prevent breaches and ensure privacy. Embracing a modular approach in solutions helps organizations remain flexible. So, embrace modularity, build things in small pieces, and put them based on demand and what you want to build. Invest in a digital infrastructure. Train and develop the right set of skills. If you don't have digital literacy in a digital world, if you're not able to work with what is going on around you, you're going to be left behind. Have to have process transparency. Make sure that the process, your digital process, is transparent and can be audited and made better, so you can build trust, transition in a much smoother way. Digital collaboration is important, cross-sector collaboration, cross-country collaboration for innovation and crisis management capabilities. Protect your data. Make sure that your data is accurate, less inaccurate and false data. Privacy safeguards while securing, very difficult thing to achieve. We talked about the dilemma. And then, of course, balance security with innovations. Organizations must learn how to manage the fine line between advancing technologically and maintaining secure operations to prevent disruptions. It is this part of innovation becomes important, which is how should the next generation of innovations come through with things such as AI, right? What are some of the security privacy elements, right? What is the fine line? What is the thin red line? Where you might fall prey to other countries, other economies who might be using the same thing. And whether you were talking about everything from deep fakes, where you can create false transcripts, false images, false videos, false voiceovers, right? How do you ensure that? So keep those in mind. Thank you very much.